tell us about the history of Shelburne Farms and why your great-grandparents were so drawn to this area?
Yeah, well, I think they were drawn to the beauty of the Lake Champlain Valley, and they had a dream of using the resources that they had access to create an agricultural estate that they could live at and enjoy, and also pursue some innovative agricultural endeavors, and as well as create some beautiful gardens. So my great-grandfather's interest was more in agriculture and horses, and my great-grandmother had a real love of horticulture and gardening.
Now share with our viewers a little bit about the restoration of the home and the facilities that occurred in the 1980s.
Yep. So the whole place had a very brief heyday. My great-grandmother was a Vanderbilt and inherited a fortune that they used to create the property. But it went through a long period of decline, and by the 1970s and 80s, all of the kind of estate infrastructure was in very poor condition. And my generation and the community members had the idea of turning the whole place into a nonprofit organization. And with wonderful community support, there was this effort to renovate the house and turn it from a liability into this amazing opportunity to share the whole property with the community, both visitors coming from Vermont and nearby and from around the world as well.
And how about for you, Glenn? Tell us a little bit about some of the history that you sort of uncovered and feature in this book.
Well, I was not present during the time of the restoration in the 1980s, but a lot of my experience of it came through looking at the archival imageries in the collections at Shelburne Farms, going through old photographs, old journals, and then looking at them in terms of what things look like today. And to my surprise, so much of the furnishings, so much of the objects, the artifacts that had left during the, say, 1940s to 1960s were able to be reinstated into the rooms, into the barns. And so to see these things come back is pretty amazing. And to remember that these are artifacts of the individuals who created the farm. So in terms of history, it's a very important place. And through these objects and through the interiors, through the restoration, we get a glimpse into American history.
Yeah, every piece does tell a story.
It does.
And it's amazing to see some of the original artwork and some of the original, even down to the wallpaper that's still there. It's incredible.
It is.
And so, Alec, why did Shelburne Farms make the transition from a private residence to a nonprofit? Why was that important to you?
Well, it wasn't just the residence, it's really the whole property that has kind of went from the, that year of my great-grandparents to being a community educational resource. So today we're in a working farm and forest that serves as this wonderful campus for learning about sustainability and the big concerns that are not only local but global in terms of climate change and kind of how we're going to take care of our natural resources and agricultural resources and community resources in a way that can create a healthy, just future for everybody.
And I know that there's sort of ongoing kind of research on the campus there about, many environmental things like runoff and so forth, and that's really important as well.
Well, that's part where we really have two things where we try to practice stewardship at the farm to create this environment for learning about sustainability. Our real focus is working with youth, for children, making connections between agriculture, food, natural resources, and community, and sharing the place in addition to offering all these programs for children and people of all ages, making it available to the community to enjoy as well.
Yeah, and I think a great example of that is the farm barn, where you have all the animals and so forth, and you encourage interaction and education. But you also mentioned that these animals do have a job to do. This is not a petting zoo.
But as a working farm, we really have opportunities for kids to interact in a very hands-on, direct way, and we also have the real working scale operations at the dairy and with our sugaring operations, so that kids can really get a sense of a real working landscape, as well as having an experience like at the Children's Farmyard, which is more of a learning environment than a production environment.
And so how did you feel that you wanted to portray this in pictures?
Well, I wanted to show not so much people having an experience at the farm, but for the reader of the book to provide a lens in which they could experience it themselves. would have been purity. They were at the front of the line, so to speak, so that there was nothing encumbering their experience. So that's why the pictures in the book are very big, they're very bold. There are lots of close-up details. There's a lot of looking at things in isolation, but great big magnificent views as well. So it's really trying to put the reader on foot, exploring the place as if they were taking a tour the entire day throughout the year.
And the thing of it is you can experience it that way. I mean, you can, off-season, you can just walk in the gates. During the season, there's a small charge to access the property, but you can walk all through it and spend all day if you want.
Walking is a great way to see the farm because for one thing, it slows you down. You're able to look and experience, to taste, to smell, to feel the wind, the sun, all of it. Whereas in a car, you tend to drive by things when you're walking, and it's a vast property. And I tend to try to walk miles every time I'm there. I really see new things all the time, tiny discoveries and great big things like storms brewing over the lake, which are utterly fascinating to watch. So on foot, it's a great place.
Mm-hmm. And is that part of the experience that you want folks to have as well?
Yes, as we're this interesting, we're a National Historic Landmark. So
Right.
I think, as Glenn is saying, just experiencing the place and the landscape is wonderful, and walking is really the best thing that probably we have to offer for a general visitor. But again, there's so much continuity and change at the farm, and that the landscape has endured, but the vision is completely different than it was when the Webbs came to town. It has gone from being a private home to this amazing community and educational resource now that's supported by amazing staff, incredible donors, and wonderful board, volunteers. It's such a community effort now that it's wonderful to be part of that.
What do you think your great-grandparents would think of the farm now, today, and what you have been able to do?
Well, I would think they would have a lot of fun driving around today. And that the landscape that they loved is still there and conserved, and now it's enjoyed by so many people, and serving such an important function in terms of helping make the world a better place through education and agriculture and community.
And food is also a big part of the farm, and it's even more important today. And Glenn, you've included the Shelburne Farms kitchen in the book and even some recipes. Tell me about why you wanted to do that.
Well, food is such a big story at the farm, and it is what brings the education component of the goals of the farm literally to the table. So when seeds are planted in the greenhouses and then planted in the fields and then harvested and brought into the kitchen, and animals are raised and cheese is made and maple syrup is produced all on the property, not a lot of the ingredients move outside the gate. They're all right there. So that's a very powerful story. And Shelburne Farms in the late 70s and early 80s was part of a real groundswell of activity in Vermont with other organizations and individuals and farmers who really created what is now such a wonderful environment for farming and for food culture in Vermont. I'd like to think that these early advocates of getting back to the land and farming really created a culture now where new farmers can come, new food producers, new restaurants, and they are welcomed, and everyone understands what they're doing in terms of organic farming and using great processes. So at the farm, it's terrific. And I asked the executive chef, Jim McCarthy, to take a number of ingredients from the farm and create what he liked. Mm-hmm. And so those we turned into more sort of stories of the food and stories of the farm that we then translated into recipes for the book, so someone at home can make them.
And it's the sort of the pure sense of the ingredients are what make the dish.
Exactly. I mean, the taste, you can taste the sun, you can taste the earth, you can taste the wind. It's pretty remarkable, and the freshness above everything is what is really, really key.
Mm-hmm. And has that been your experience too, as far as folks who want to come and work at the farm and create these dishes and be a chef and explore these things?
Yes, well, there's a huge interest in local food systems now and healthy food, and because it's so connected to environmental and social justice and health. And food, so much revolves around agriculture and food in all our programs, and they do all come together. Both actually, we have a little farm cart at the end, or at the farm barn, but the restaurant at the end. Food is really, those connections are for both young people and for educators and others coming to stay at the end, or in our guests. It really connects you to place and to the farm itself.
And what's wonderful is when children and adults and everyone in between come to the farm and they take a tour of the vegetable gardens or the pastures, and they see the lettuce, they see the carrots being grown and harvested, and then they're having them at the farm cart for lunch. Something clicks. So there's the experience is so powerful in terms of education in that way.
Alex, can you maybe tell us a little bit more about some of the other programs that happen on the farm for the community?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have, if you're a visitor, you can come and walk and enjoy the farmyard, and then we have a number of events that happen either at the farm barn or the coach barn during the summer. So there's everything from some community concerts. There's a seminar in Nourish Vermont, it's called. It's around kind of looking at healthy local food systems that's open to the public. That'll be at the coach barn in a few weeks. And then at the end we have the Northeast Farm to School Institute. There'll be educators and school food service people and administrators coming to look at kind of how to strengthen farm to school programs throughout the Northeast. So there's all kinds of programs and activities that people can participate in.
And also, too, during the school year, it seems like there's always a bus or two.
There's a school group every day on the property, and of course, so we serve a lot of local children. But then our larger impact is through working with educators who take what they learn from Shelburne Farms and take it back to their own community, so they can make connections between their schools and classrooms in their communities and farms and parks and natural and community resources.
Take us maybe 50 years into the future. You think things will be exactly the same, or will you keep evolving and finding new ways to make those connections?
Yeah. Well, I would hope that it kind of, as has been the case, that the landscape would still have the beauty and productivity that you see today. But I'm sure the programs will continue to evolve. But I hope it'll be this amazing educational resource that continues to be a working farm and serves, we hope by that time, this global network of educators who are dedicated to bringing the next generation of decision makers who can create a better world.
Okay, once again, the book is called Shelburne Farms, House, Gardens, Farm, and Barns. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
That's our program for today. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.